There's some people who think what the president said was just a gaffe. It wasn't a gaffe. It was instead his ideology. The president does in fact believe that people who build enterprises like this really aren't responsible for it.
You know, as Americans, we don't expect handouts, but we expect hard work to pay off. We understand there will be setbacks, but we also know that responsibility should be rewarded.
Well, Mitt Romney and President Obama today on the stump talking really about one comment back July 13th. We're going to talk about that comment in context. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. Casey Hunt, national political reporter for the Associated Press, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Okay, panel, the comment we're talking about is you didn't build that. There's been a lot of back and forth. Democrats are accusing the Romney campaign of twisting this, of taking it all out of context. So we wanted to take time to go back to Friday the 13th in Roanoke, Virginia, and play the entire segment right now.
If you've been successful, you didn't get there on your own. You didn't get there on your own. I'm always struck by people who think, well, it must be because I was just so smart. There are a lot of smart people out there. It must be because I worked harder than everybody else. Let me tell you something. There are a whole bunch of hard-working people out there. If you were successful, somebody along the line gave you some help. There was a great teacher somewhere in your life. Somebody helped to create this unbelievable American system that we have that allowed you to thrive. Somebody invested in roads and bridges. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen. The internet didn't get invented on its own. Government research created the internet, so then all the companies could make money off the internet. The point is that when we succeed because of our individual initiative, but also because we do things together.
Okay, in context, that was the whole section there. Steve.
Well, I'm glad I have a do-over because I tried to talk about this the other night and didn't make myself very clear. Look, the fighting over this one sentence, I think reasonable people can agree or can disagree on this. Obama's team is going to say what they say. Republicans and his critics are going to say what they say. I think both arguments have merit. Nobody knows but what the president. My point again tonight is very simple. The context in this case is not exculpatory, it's damning. It's further damning because the president is in effect elevating government spending and the presence of government above hard work, above brains, above the kinds of things that small business owners do in order to become successful. That, to me, taking the passage in totality is what makes it so controversial. And the White House is out, saying, look, the president didn't mean this. He didn't mean to take that shot in that particular sentence. I think it's beside the point whether that particular sentence is even in the passage. The rest of the passage is, I think, offensive enough that the Romney campaign can make hay with that.
Okay, Casey, we are now about 4 web videos in, 3 events where Mitt Romney focused pretty much a lot of his remarks on this very sentence. Obviously, the Romney campaign sees a lot of political gold here.
Sure. Well, and you saw the Democrats do the exact same thing to Mitt Romney. I mean, he's made a series of what he will acknowledge are misstatements that have played into the caricature that Democrats want voters to see of an out-of-touch, rich guy who is, quote-unquote, not concerned about the very poor. I mean, that's something that was, taken out of context there. And so here, the Romney campaign has been given something of a gift in that they can take this remark both, as he was just saying, in or out of context, and it's still problematic for the president.
If you're fighting, let me interrupt you. If you're fighting that people are talking out of context or edited remarks, are you losing the political day?
It's always, I mean, how many news cycles do we have in a given day now, Bret? I mean, it's, it's on and on. Now, of course, this did allow Mitt Romney to change the conversation away from his tenure at Bain Capital. Let's remember what we were talking about 2 days ago, and the Obama campaign did succeed in pushing that message. So this statement by the president really gave Romney an opportunity to change the conversation when he really needed one.
Charles.
Well, that's the process, but the content here is utterly damning. I mean, Romney says it's not a gaffe. It's a gaffe as defined in Washington. That's when a politician accidentally speaks what is really in his heart. This is his political philosophy. And it's elaborated. I don't care about that one sentence, although I would say, I just agree with Steve, that one sentence, as I just heard it, and as anybody looking at it would see in print, that you build, that is a reference to a person's idea that he built his own business. It's not a reference to roads and bridges. But let's look at the whole context, and let's ignore that one sentence. He starts with a mocking reference to people who succeed, believing it might have something to do with intelligence or hard work, sort of laughing at it.
Saying, I'm always struck by people who think
they think it was intelligence.
They're so smart. Yeah. There are a lot of smart people out there.
So he's mocking people, you know, a Korean immigrant who works 16 hours a day in a candy store, and he builds it and he sends his kids to college on with that, you know, with the money he finally makes 20 years later. Or a physician in medical school, you know, who goes 60 or 80-hour weeks, who works hard, and then in his 50s begins reaping the rewards of his work. That's number one. Secondly, everybody who says who helped you along the way, it's no accident. Everybody in his examples is an agent of the government. It's either a teacher or a road or a bridge or the internet, which he says incorrectly was invented by the government so it could create opportunities in the marketplace. So it's all government, and this is his philosophy, that government is the root of American success, individual and national, and it's not individual enterprise. He has, to some extent, individual enterprise, but anybody who thinks it's that obviously is rewarding himself in a way that is undeserved. It's the government, and that's the heart of his philosophy. That's the real division between left and right in the country. That's why Romney ought to hit it every day until Election Day.
I want to hit a couple of polls here that we didn't get to yesterday. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Fox News poll, no, 48%. Has the Obama administration made the economy better or worse? You see worse now at 49%. That's a change as well from March. And if I can skip down a bit, best describe the views given the current economic situation. Government is the problem. 64%. Government is the solution, 23%. A lot of polls out there. Is this starting to turn, Steve? Are we seeing a changing landscape in this race?
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, what's most striking, if you look at that poll and some others that were taken this week, is the change in people's optimism about what's coming in subsequent years. I mean, you had for a long time people who were describing the economy as not a good economy, 80% saying it was in recession, but yet we're optimistic about where we were headed. You're now starting to see increasingly in polls across the American electorate, people expressing much more skepticism or cynicism about where we're headed. That, I think, is the big problem for President Obama.
Casey, you've been on the trail a bunch.
Well, in all honesty, between now and the election, as we've seen already, you're going to see poll after poll after poll that's showing this to be a very, very close race. And it's just a handful of voters, really, in the whole country who are going to decide this race. All of the money is being spent in just a few states to move just a few folks who probably voted for President Obama last time, and that the Romney campaign would like to say, hey, it's okay, this didn't work out. We'd like you to be with us this time.
Yeah. Are there people, I guess that's the question, are there people who voted for Senator McCain last time who President Obama will attract this time?
Well, that's the question that both campaigns are looking at. I mean, really, if you talk to some of the strategists up in Boston and also in Chicago, they'll identify very narrow places where, you know, they need to keep or win different folks over. Women over the age of 35, for example, are a really key demographic that they're both looking at.
Charles, quickly, is the landscape changing?
I think in part because of what we heard from the Fed chairman, who's a neutral observer, who says the economy is slipping backwards. The recovery is slowing. And that, I think, is what is filtering out. This is going to be a summer of recovery. In fact, it's the opposite. And I think, apart from all the back and forth in the campaigns, all the ads, all the negative stuff, that, I think, is having an influence in sort of sapping the strength of the Obama campaign.